it's a bizarre world where even your status is dictated by what time you are chosen to enter an art fair. The industry has come to accept the highly engineered nature of it all.
Colleen Cash has built her career inside some of the most rarefied corners of the luxury auction market, from Christie's and ArtNet to her current role as president of Sotheby's Motorsport. In industries where perception is everything, it's perhaps no surprise that Colleen has embraced her role as a spin doctor, but not in the way you might think.
Just give me the raw material, I will find the through line. I'm going to use this word again. I don't think it's a bad one. Spin doctors. But not everyone else is able to be as flexible in thinking about sort of multi-definitional success.
On today's episode, we talk about balancing vulnerability with authority, what it takes to lead with conviction even when you're the youngest person in the room, and why Colleen believes great leaders master the art of the spin by finding the silver lining and using it to move themselves and their teams forward.
We can't be in worlds where there are hard stops because business doesn't stop. But remember what you can control. You can control your reactions to things. You want to be pliable. You don't want to be rigid because that's your risk of breaking.
Colleen Cash, welcome to Fail Up.
Thank you so much for having me.
What a name, by the way.
It's real, too. I mean, I have had so many people ask me, particularly in the industry I'm in, that can't be real. I'm like, no, it's real. It's real deal.
Did you ever consider changing it through marriage?
So my little secret is I have.
You have.
But professionally, it is who I am.
Yeah.
It really is my namesake.
Yeah.
It's your stage name. It's funny. I think my mother.
Totally a stage name.
Right? And my mom, I think, always told the story. She went to high school with a guy named Joe Roach, and not making it up, he was an exterminator.
Oh my God,
and sometimes you find yourself.
Yeah.
It's like destiny.
Yeah.
So I am an auction person, and I'm Colleen Cash.
Yeah, it's so good. We used to work with, back in my agency days, there was someone we worked with called Matthew Moneypenny.
Oh, how
and
funny
he was
is
in
that?
Like business development.
Yeah.
And I was like, he can't have any other job.
You can't make it up. It's, you can try, but somehow you end up fulfilling exactly what you're meant to.
Totally. And I'm excited about the boy.
Thank you. Me too. It's so new. It feels like my first again because, my daughter is just turned 2. You get to know what that's like and what to expect from a little girl. But I hear it's going to be a world of difference and a lot of energy, but we're really very excited.
How are you feeling about raising a boy in today's world?
Great question. It's interesting. My husband is European, and I think because of that, we have very global values. I think it's really hard to be particularly a young male in the U.S. these days.
Yeah.
So I think with that global perspective, he will be connected to many different traditions, cultural traditions, country traditions, language traditions. So I'm excited to give him that global perspective.
And different ideas about what masculinity means
100%.
and all of that stuff.
Absolutely.
Well, let's just, we start all of these interviews with a little bit of a kind of meet cute around how did we meet? But what's your memory? What's your memory of our meeting?
You came in as my boss.
I did.
And I remember.
It never felt like that.
It never felt like that. But I will say.
Never felt like that.
When I found out, the company was going to be bringing someone on, I wasn't thrilled about it at first. And I think it was with not trepidation, but there was maybe a little hesitancy. I remember meeting you and I was very clear. I'm like, I don't need a boss. I don't need someone to manage me, but do I need a partner to help me manage up and, secure the resources I needed to be successful and fight the big fights. And I think very quickly that is where our relationship landed. So I think it went from, what could have been top down to really partners in what we were trying to do together.
Yeah, I agree. Whenever I talk about you to anyone and kind of our dynamic and relationship at work, I always use that word too. It always comes back to this idea of partnership. And I feel like it was one of those situations where even whether you're the boss or you're reporting into someone, both people have so much to learn from the other person.
Absolutely.
And if you come at it as more of a strategic partnership, you'll be more successful.
Yeah. And I love that you used that word. I think that's what it was. I mean, I never once felt there was a moment where you were saying, do this differently, do this better, because I think you acknowledged you have, Colleen, an expertise that I don't.
Yeah.
And I have an expertise that can help, sort of burnish yours. And I think that was the start of a very beautiful relationship.
Yeah, you taught me everything I knew about the art world. You really did. I remember early on. So obviously we met working for ArtNet together.
Yeah, that's right.
And I came in as a COO, and Colleen was running the auctions business, and then ended up expanding her role and taking over galleries and kind of the whole marketplace. And I knew nothing about the art world. I still feel like a novice, and you were kind of my art world hotline. I'd be like in meetings and slacking Colleen and be like, what are they talking about? Like, what does
Totally
this mean? From an art world standpoint. So that was, I feel like you gave me a good schooling with that.
Well, I was very happy to. It was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. Give us a little bit of background of just who you are and kind of your childhood, where you grew up, all that stuff. And I always love to ask people, you know, was there any moments in your life and your childhood that you feel like now looking back kind of set you on the path to become Colleen Cash, president of Sotheby's Motorsport?
It's a good question. And I appreciate sort of going back to childhood, because I think that's a part of our lives when we talk about who we are professionally that's like cut off from where we are today. My background, I'm a native New Yorker, and I was a theater kid. And I have to be honest with you. That's why we got along so well. I credit all of who I am professionally to that today.
Really?
Yes, because when you are really a theater kid the way I was, and you can appreciate it, you know, the theater camps, the theater club, I was literally voted most dramatic in high school. I'm so proud of that. It's probably one of my proudest sort of superlatives. You have to become a jack of all trades. And you know what? You have to become a master of them, because you might be the lead, and you might be hanging lights, and you might be doing costumes and working on the set on Saturdays. And it really is the best team sport out there. You put on these productions. There is no task too small. You pick it up. I've had moments on stage where your colleague, your fellow actor forgets their lines, and you try to give them a way in. Those are all so transferable to the chambers of commerce.
Totally.
So for me, that really set me up for not only a skill set that was very multifaceted, but it also gave me this unrelenting desire, and I should say stubbornness. I refused to put myself in a box. So even if, you know, my background, which you also elegantly laid out, my degree is literally in special honors. My mother still to this day goes, what the heck does that mean? I refused to declare a major.
Yeah, what does that mean?
So basically at Hunter College, I went on an art scholarship. And immediately I was like, I'm never acting again. I'm too pragmatic. I want to make money. Yeah. I'm so grateful for that experience, but now I want to enter the corporate world. And there was an honors program there that allowed you to make your own major. Oh. So you had to propose a field of study. I ended up studying the Museum of Arts and Design and the economic, real estate, administrative history of it, and how it propelled itself from a very obscure museum down on 18th Street back in, say, I think the 50s, 60s, to now the behemoth it is on Columbus Circle. And that literally is what my degree is in: special honors and a sort of economic evolution of craft.
Wow.
And
I never knew that.
Yeah. So, and that has been the tenor of my career. I have always been agnostic. I've never been an expert in one category. And by sort of going down that path, I have become an expert in the business of art, in the secondary markets, in auction, primary marketplaces online. I've sold handbags, jewelry, fine art, decorative arts. Now I sell cars. I love introducing myself as a used car saleswoman. I think it's kind of fabulous. But it was this intrinsic need in me to be many things. And I do think that comes from the theater world, where, again, you could be the lead and you could be the sound person, putting mics on, quick changes. I've always loved having my hand in lots of pots, and I never wanted to lose that professionally.
It also explains, I mean, you're obviously also just you were always such a good presenter.
Oh, thank you.
Such a good public speaker. We would roll Colleen out whenever we needed a spokesperson. So that makes sense, you know, all that theater training. I also was a music theater kid. Maybe that's why we became friends.
There's that ephemeral between us.
I feel like I was always in the ensemble, though.
Okay.
You strike me as a leading lady.
You know, it's funny. I was that person, like, I always was the mom. 8th grade, I was the mom.
You were the mom in the theater productions? Like you played the mom?
I always played the older lady. I played the mom. And then I played Blanche Dubois in Streetcar Named Desire, senior year of high school. It was like my crowning moment because finally I felt the roles had advanced to match my kind of maturity. Yeah. And now I could play the leading lady because now I was 18 and I could play Blanche. I mean, I'd love to play her again now in my 30s, having so much more life experience because there's such a richness to that character. But it took some time because otherwise it was, me, and I'm tall and I always had that phonality. But yeah, I was, the 7th grade grandma, the 8th grade grandma, the 9th grade, you name it. I always played the older lady.
I only did it. I did it when I was in primary school, secondary school. Right. And then I did it at kind of like a local amateur musical theatre company, but I ended up making some really close friends that are still some of my best friends to this day. So then ended up in kind of music theatre at school. But I was always it was more for fun. I was always the ensemble. I was never very good at it. And then I had this one role that was like social suicide for me, and I had to leave and just not do it again because my social cred was just plummeting.
What show was it? Or do we not want to go there?
We can. It's so funny. Okay, we put on a production of Beauty and the Beast.
Love it.
Who do you think I played?
Well, I'll tell you after you tell me who I played in Beauty and the Beast. Can't be worth. I was a broom. Talk about social suicide, and my friend Jessica, who's listening, we were twin brooms. We had broomsticks on our head. Imagine the jokes when you're in middle school and you literally have an 8-inch broomstick on your head.
I don't know what's worse, the broomstick.
Were you Cogsworth?
I was LeFou.
That's a great character.
LeFou, like the Gaston's sidekick.
Yeah, why not? I think it's
what
great.
Part of that is
Look,
no. What part of that when you're in high school?
I guess
and
you're right.
Suddenly like coming into yourself and like
and you had to go.
You want to be like cute and you don't want to be LeFou and just like plummet walking back. I never recovered from that. I never recovered from that.
Did you have a good Gaston to? I
can't even remember.
Wingman, at least?
I mean, it was an all-girls school, so it was all...
Okay.
It was all girls.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, that was... Never again. I think that was my last.
LeFou and a broom. Yeah. We could put on another... We could do a sort of a grand reenactment one day.
Yeah. Before we go any further, maybe do you want to just help us also understand a little bit more about SOMO?
Totally.
There's probably people that...
Absolutely. So Sotheby's Motorsport, SOMO as we like to call it, when I first joined the business in February 2024, we immediately went into a rebrand and we decided that we wanted to be a little more fun. So, we brought that into our branding, our color palette, the fonts we use, and the name. Yeah. This is an industry that competes with the likes of Bring a Trailer, BAT or BAT as they're called. There's Cars and Bids, C&B, right? So there's all these sort of colloquialisms and abbreviations. And we decided we should have one too. So SOMO is how we are sort of referred to in the industry. And SOMO is a joint venture of Sotheby's and DuPont Registry, both heritage brands in automotive, in the luxury car world, and in the automotive auction space. And it really is a white glove platform for high-end cars. So our average transaction value is $200,000. We trade in a lot of Ferraris, Porsches, Aston Martins.
Amazing.
You name it, the high end, typically European cars, makes and models. We do sell Ford GTs and other things like that made stateside, but really it's a business that facilitates sales for the collector car market. It's really quite fun. I mean, I look at these cars as works of art. I'm here for the design language. I have an amazing team that can talk engine specs with you and all of that. But for me, I look at the lines of like a classic, 1978 Aston Martin, Oscar India, and my husband, who will be listening to this, will laugh at me for how I'm talking about the makes and models. But they really are beautiful objects. And it's a real pleasure to steward them across, we're an online company, so we sell cars from Idaho to Florida to Maine to Southern California, largely based in the Northeast. That's North America. That's our main market. We do business with Canada as well. Might have some global aspirations at some point. But otherwise, we do 24/7 online auctions in the car space. It's a huge addressable market. It's an ecosystem. There are dealers, brokers, advisors, private clients, and we get to play with some really, really pretty, beautiful cars.
Beautiful cars.
Yeah.
If you're into kind of luxury, vintage cars. You should follow your Instagram is like car porn. Who's the people that are buying these cars? Are they buying them as collector's items, or are they buying them to drive?
It's a great question. Both. This is almost in no cases that I'm really aware of is this someone's only vehicle. It's their second, third, fourth, fifth car. However, we've had someone call and say, hey, I'm looking for an Aston Martin DB5 for my daily driver. That car is a $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 car.
Christ.
Great.
Okay, one question I'm really curious to explore with you, because I feel like you and I had a similar experience with this, is that you climbed the ranks of your career really quickly, right? Faster than most. So you found yourself in really senior leadership positions at a pretty young age. When I met you, I had no idea how old you were. You're just so wiser than your years. It wasn't until months in that I had realized, I think it was because your birthday was coming up or something.
Yeah. I mean,
and you were like, it's my 30th. And I was like, what?
Like, huh?
Not that you looked older, it's just because you have
Again,
such
I always
presence
played
and
the
confidence.
mom.
Yeah.
Hello. It never leaves you.
It's totally true. You were very motherly.
Right.
And, you know, obviously there's probably a lot of people listening, because we have a very ambitious community and audience that might be in a similar situation where they're having to lead teams and manage people that are older than them and have kind of, you know, more experience than them in different aspects. And I'm curious what that experience was like for you, and what are the lessons that you've taken from that?
Well, it wasn't always easy. And I would laugh, and I'm sure, you know, some of our former colleagues are listening to this. I used to laugh that on certain days, I just knew there was a door somewhere with my face on it and darts being thrown at it. Like I just knew it. And at some point you had to come to terms with that. And for me, you know, how did I get there? I was loud, not in a brash way, but in that I spoke about opportunities I saw. And I'll tell you an example at ArtNet. I had been there, I don't know, 3 months, something like that. And I actually ran into a former colleague in the lobby. And I said, oh, this is interesting. What are you doing here? And I sort of asked around, and I found out that they were hiring for sort of a senior position within my department at the time, and that this person was a candidate. And I started putting two and two together, and I'm like, well, I know that person. I've worked with that person. I don't think they're the right fit for this role. But now that I know that they're exploring this, I'm going to put my hand up.
Good for you.
And I mean, I've always been that way. It's whether you call it leaning in or being loud, you have to call out these things. And sometimes you have to show people that you are that puzzle piece, right? Because they're otherwise going to try to force someone into it. And maybe they're a fit or maybe they're not. But if you don't give them that idea, then you're never going to be considered. I had a great uncle who used to say, if you don't ask, you don't get, right?
Yeah.
So I asked.
Yeah, you've got to be more assertive. And I feel like that's something that women, generalization, but I have found women are less assertive than men.
I think you're right. And I mean, for me, I remember I literally said, hey, can I chat with you? You know, I don't remember if it was one of the directors at the time or who it was. And I said, tell me a little bit about this. I know this person. I'd like to be considered. And you know what? They were very welcoming to the idea. There also was a period, though, and I think this is my advice to the next generation. Sometimes you do have to do the job before you're given all that comes with it. The title, the money, right? Sort of the formalization of it. Sometimes powers that be are happy to say, yeah, go for it. Try it out. Let's talk about it once we see some results. And I was unafraid to do that too, right? So that idea of like going back to the theater days, rolling up your sleeves, doing the nose to the grindstone work, and then it becomes self-evident. And then before you knew it, I joined as client service manager. Within 3-4 months, I was the business manager. Then I was director of auctions, vice president of auctions. And it really kind of snowballed. And it was because I made the first snowball, right? I handed it to them. I said, I am the candidate. Stop talking to my former colleagues. I'm here. I did the same job as them, right? So for me, that was key. And then, managing people that are older than you, I've basically always been in that position. And again, certain moments have been harder than others. I think you taught me a lot. And I think one thing I found as a leader was, and it was a big learning experience for me to get over this, which was as a leader, you don't want you have an instinct to not show your fallibility, right? As a leader, there's an instinct to have all the answers, to be right, to show you're buttoned up. But in fact, it was in those moments of acknowledgement that, hey, you're the expert here, right? And as your manager or as your leader, it's my job to take you and your success and highlight them. That really was a huge unlock for me, right? Where it was, the team's success is my success. I don't need to keep them under wraps for my success. It was much better if we surfaced everyone, brought everyone into the problems, the solutions, and gave everyone else a win. That was a big unlock for me. And I really had to learn that I could be a human. And in fact, it was in the humanity and the fallibility that I feel like I earned some of my leadership stripes.
I love that. Excuse me. I always... makes me think of a quote that when I was at the Times, and the now CEO, Meredith Kopit-Levy, she was the COO at the time, and she was like there in that transition. And I always kind of watched her ascension, into this incredible job. And I always used to kind of read her commentary in the annual report. And there was a line that she used to say over and over and over again as COO, and she still says it to this day, which she would always talk about. She felt like her job was to create the conditions for people to do their best work.
Totally. I love that.
She's like, that is what I am here to do.
Right.
And there is such a skill to that. And I think especially when you have people older than you, or even like our dynamic, right? When you were like the subject matter expert. Right. And I was like, I need to be able to create the conditions for you to be able to lean into what you do best.
Totally.
So I think that's really, it's really good advice if people are leading teams of people, more experienced than them.
Absolutely.
Okay, we're going to switch course slightly. We're going to get into our conversation around failure.
Yeah.
The first question I've asked everyone is just to kind of ground us in how you think about failure. How do you define it? How you think about it? Yep. And does that change kind of personally and professionally for you?
It's a great question. So in thinking about the definition of failure, I think I've landed in a place where I believe failure is the gulf or the delta between the hypothesized outcome, the desired outcome, the dream outcome, and what actually happens. And it can be a huge gulf. It can be a small gulf. It can be profoundly impactful. It might sort of roll right off your shoulders. But I think it is a disparity in expectation and reality.
And do you think it is a self-imposed determination? So you put these, you put the expectations out ahead of you, you didn't meet them, so it's self-imposed? Or do you think the failure is determined by external parties?
Yes and yes. Certainly in a professional setting, typically you have goals for your initiatives and, whether they're financial or the quantitative goals, you typically have a basis on which to measure, but also you might not. And sometimes it is hindsight that shows you what was a failure and what wasn't. And sometimes they have really long tails and things that might be immediate failures are actually the best thing that ever happened to you, right?
Exactly.
I think on the personal front, we've all had relationships where, you go from being heartbroken one day to 6 months later, thank God, right? I mean, failure is also, I think, determined and distilled by the context of where we are. Yes. So I do think it ends up living and breathing.
The timing piece that you've just brought up is crucial.
Yeah.
I think things in the moment obviously can feel really hard and painful and
big
much and bigger than they are. So the failure always feels very visceral in the moment. And then in time, that's where you start to draw the lessons. That's when you reflect, and that's where you get the growth from it. But,
absolutely.
That's something that's come up a lot with people.
Yeah.
With people. And even, it's funny, even people that I wanted to come on the podcast, if certain people are going through certain things, it's like, it's a timing thing, right? It's like people need a minute to process what's going on before they can kind of talk about it. What do you think is the opposite of failure? Do you think is it success or is it something else?
That's interesting. To the point on timing, what is failure? Failure does feel like a very time-bound thing, right? There's a sinking feeling. It's like when you get that in my world, it would be getting our auction results from the day, or,
Right.
You missed the financial goal that month. That's a moment of failure. I wonder if is success as fleeting? It feels like success might last a little longer. And is success hitting your target? Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think they're both they're both sort of constructs of who is experiencing it, who's assessing it. It also makes me think of, just frankly disagreements I've had, and what are the markers of, quote, success? Well, are they for the business? Are they for the board? Are they for me personally? Just because you hit them, one party's happy. Are you?
Yeah.
It really is a loaded thing.
Think everyone, that's a great point. Everyone has a different barometer, right?
Totally.
Everyone has a different stake. That's kind of what I was hinting at before in terms of you can think something's a failure and the people around you think it's a success, or vice versa.
But I think we feel failure. I'm someone who, and I think that as a leader, I've maybe struggled with this, and it might be one of my blind spots, in that I am like, and I don't want to say this in a bad way, but I tell my sales team this all the time. I'm like, just give me the raw material. I will find the through line, right? I'll spin it. I'm like a spin doctor. So if I don't hit my revenue goal, but our average transaction value is up for the month, or, all of a sudden we have 10% new buyers this month, I will find the
positioning.
Correct.
Yeah.
I will.
You're good at that.
That is I really enjoy that, and I'm really good at that. But not everyone else is able to be as flexible in thinking about sort of multi-definitional success. And I think because of my inherent ability, and maybe it's even a self-defense mechanism where I don't allow myself to maybe sit with the failure, and I instantly try to pivot to sort of the headline. For some people, if they didn't hit the goal, that's it. That was the failure, or they're unable to see beyond maybe the 3-4 goals assigned, or they have a harder time thinking flexibly. And I do think as a leader, I have had moments where, for me, I move very quickly. Okay, we didn't hit this goal, but look at this. And for others, they need to sit in that for a minute. Their efforts went towards that, and they might have thoughts and a need to debrief on that more than I do. And it's like, how do you find space for that while also continuing to move the team forward? I think there's a risk in, I don't want to use the word wallowing, but in sitting in failure for too long, right? We need to move on. We need to learn from these things. Ultimately, I think failure possibly should be rebranded as learning opportunity. I think it's hard in a professional setting because sometimes a failure means actual dollars and cents and has big impact. But I think that really, if we rebrand it and build a pivot culture where we're all a little bit more comfortable, that didn't work. Okay, we move on. Next. I think as humans, we're bad at ending things. We're bad at failure because we are emotional beings.
You said something there that I want to unpack a little bit around, that you feel like that repackaging and repositioning, you said you see that as a blind spot.
Yeah, I do. I think it is.
Talk to me about that.
So I'll give you an example. And a lot of my work as a leader has been in managing sales teams and revenue goals and revenue operations, where I'm not necessarily an in the trenches salesperson, right? So whether it was people who, are experts who are contemporary art specialists, or my automotive experts, we have different skill sets, and I'm sort of a manager of that operation, whereas they're the ones out there getting the cars, selling through the cars or the artworks, whatever it is, whatever industry I'm in, right, in my experience. And for me, if we had a sale, and say it was, a lot of what we do in the auction world is kind of putting new bows on the same property, right? You can only sell the Picasso prints so many ways before you need to try a new angle to get new bidders in the room. So for me, I was able to move very quickly between sale iterations, between different campaigns. And, sometimes we had a home run and other times we didn't. And I found that I think I turned the page too quickly.
Okay.
And I remember there was a sale experience we did with a global partner, actually. And the hypothesis was, by sort of co-listing this inventory, we will have a raft of new underbidders. We'll increase our average bid per lot from, call it 5.5 to 10.5. It's going to be glorious. You know what? It didn't result in that. And for me, I found some financial metrics that did show signs of success. I think the average transaction value was, 10-15% higher than if it had only sold on our site, et cetera. But for some of those that had actually filled that sale and found that inventory and pitched the consigners on all of this greatness, it wasn't as easy for them.
And what's the takeaway for you?
I think the takeaway for me is probably setting the business context, the why, a little bit more clearly. I think as leaders, sometimes we're in our it's too obvious for us, and we don't necessarily take that time at the front end of something to really lay the groundwork, explain the why, and maybe lay out our version of the multi-dimensional definition of success, but also to elicit from the team what they might look for as success. I'm mindful, and as leaders, we have to acknowledge, not everything is a democracy, but how do you build buy-in, particularly when your team's job function might be different from yours, and you might be up against that sort of grate between, you're just the bean counter, you're management, I'm actually doing the hard work. I think it's really important to bring them in to what might be successful so that they feel like they have something to connect with at the end when maybe it was a failure, maybe it was a success.
And I think you said something earlier around needing to instill a learning culture.
Yes.
Right? And that actually that failure, you would love to see failure rebranded as an opportunity to learn and grow. So if you're not giving the team the moment to sit in it and to learn, then you're missing out on that opportunity for them to learn and grow. The repositioning conversation is interesting too. Yes, you want to be vulnerable and admit when things haven't gone right and find the learnings, but also we do live in a world where perception is everything.
Totally.
People's personal brands are really important, and everyone's looking at, things in 1 second, even internally. You don't have a lot of time to talk about things. So I do think for people there's a skill in also packaging things up and selling things in a way that's like, we got it happened, but we're moving on, and
exactly,
here's the positives we're pulling from that, and not dwelling on it too much.
Totally. I think you're right. And I think I do lead with that. I'm always going to find the greatest hits because there's always something, right?
Yeah.
There's always one line that's going to work.
You are remembering now. You were very good at pulling out the some sort of sell-through rate or percentage to repackage things.
And those are real quantitative things.
It's all perception.
Absolutely. And you bet I'm going to surface it. However, and this was a quote that I came across literally in a book I was reading yesterday, and I think I had texted it to you. And I think that this is where great leaders are separated from good leaders. And it is in that success has many fathers and failure is an orphan. And it's a John F. Kennedy quote after the Bay of Pigs fiasco. And I do think that there is something extremely laudable in taking a moment, not more than a moment necessarily, to own the failure. So it was, the actuals were different from our goals. And right? It's a wonderful technique. We've talked a lot about this in our sort of partnering on management and team development and coaching. But I think yes and works here. And look, I experience this too. I mean, I'm not immune to taking work home with me, to having work nightmares, even though I'm really good public facing of saying, but wait, there's more. You do wear it. And again, we are emotional beings. It is how we process things. But I think as a leader, the credibility you can build with your team that has a real financial and performance impact when you're with them in that moment of acknowledging the failure, and you're human and you're authentic, I think is absolutely invaluable.
Yeah. But also not, you were very good at not letting anyone sit in it for too long, right?
Correct.
It's that repackaging, it's the reposition and moving forward. And I think that's good too, right? You don't want those moments of learning and growth to be too long because they become kind of self-referential
They
in a way.
do. And look, they can breed toxicity. And in my industry, we always
and
have
just destroys people's confidence.
Correct.
In a way.
And clients, right?
Yeah.
I've always been in industries where we have to report back to our clients the good, the bad, and the ugly. So for the clients whose property we sell through really well, those are the easy conversations. But as I deal with, and I tell all my sales teams, we have to be the bearers of the good and the bad news. So internally, we can have this conversation and we can hate what happened and we can talk about it, but we have to represent our brands and the business and the forward looking sort of, perspective to our clients, and how do we continue to engage them? And I think because of that, that's probably why I also have such a pull towards what are the greatest hits here, because we always have a client we need to go back to, and it's important to keep them afloat with us as well.
It's a good segue into my next question, which is about the industry that you're in and the perceptions and expectations of that industry. And I think whether it is, fine art or auctions, or even there's a lot of people in the Melio universe that work in like luxury fashion and industries that are kind of driven on a lot of prestige, perception, status, like social status, cultural status, economic status, where you're kind of got to hold yourself a certain way and present things a certain way. And I'm just curious how that do you think the industry has kind of impacted you in the way where you've ended up at this technique where you're trying to kind of just package everything up with a bow? And or do you think that came more naturally?
It's a good question. Yeah, I mean, look, it's particularly the art market, right? It's a bizarre world where even your status is dictated by what time you are chosen to enter an art fair, right? I mean, there really are.
It's so true.
Right?
Yes.
Like, do you have the 11 a.m. time or do you have the 2 p.m. time?
Ridiculous.
It's so ridiculous. But I do think that we are all in this industry out of necessity and out of self-preservation. I'm going to use this word again. I don't think it's a bad one. Spin doctors. Because, look at what just happened last week at Sotheby's with the Giacometti sculpture.
Yeah, talk to us about that.
So this was a sculpture, a bust of Giacometti's brother. I can't speak to the art historical sort of details, but commercially, I'll give you the broad strokes. It had an estimate of about $70 million, and it was the top lot of auction week. Most of these lots at that level, they are highly engineered commercial transactions, meaning that there is known interest beforehand that has been papered either contractually in guarantees or at least engineered in a way where you know exactly who is going to be on the lot, meaning bidding on it or interested in it.
It's like what you spoke about before, that like there's all this prep, but really there's 3 to 5 people that have already been engaged. They're ready to go. And the rest of it is ceremonial.
Exactly. Yeah. And at the highest end of the market, it all operates that way. And in the case of this Giacometti sculpture, it did not garner a single real bid. And
wild. Well, not that wild.
Right. Exactly. I mean, in some ways, not wild at all. It's a $70 million sculpture.
In this economy.
In this economy? Come on.
Yikes.
But it was wild because I think the industry has come to accept and expect the highly engineered nature of it all, so that there is no surprise and that there are no sort of unmatched lots at this level, because the market self-perpetuates because things trade at this level.
And it's like that, is that a failure? Is that not a failure?
I mean, when I joined Christie's, there was no such thing as Giga Week. Now it's Giga Week, and that's that week in May.
What is Giga Week?
So it's 2 weeks a year, May and November, when all of the big auction houses, the contemporary art and modern sales, right? And something like $2 billion of art is traded. So when we look at last week, what are the headlines? Is the only headline that matters that the Giacometti didn't sell, or is it that they still traded $1.5 billion worth of art, right?
Right.
From my perspective, there's a lot of good news. And more than that, there's a lot of news to come from that. Take the Giacometti as one data point, but the market hasn't imploded. There were other stars that stood out, new artist markets on the rise, depth of bidding at other price points and other categories. And we'll all live on to fight another day. But when you do, again, have Baroque, OpEx heavy, press heavy, orchestrated events, you are creating such an expectation. Again, failure being the gulf between expectation and reality, that you have now created a potentially deeper failure because you had your expectations so high and reality didn't meet you there.
My next question is, I'm really curious if there was a time in your career where you felt really completely in over your head and how you navigated that level of self-doubt.
Yes. So I think it was probably when I was at ArtNet, when I
juicy.
took over sort of the auctions team. I was going through sort of a tougher time personally. And I think because of that, I had really thrown myself into the job. It was like a lifeline for me. I was there on weekends, and it was a confluence of a lot. It was taking over the team, being a younger manager to some direct reports who are actually in age older. It was also new systems. It was not having, sort of a finance business partner. And I was doing both the Excel work, the KPI calculation, and not only being responsible for that, but also being responsible for what actually made up the KPI calculation. Like, did we hit the goals? It was a lot. And what I realized was, that was an opportunity where I actually needed to support my personal life more because the job was becoming, I was all consuming. So what did I do then? I think it was a moment of sort of taking back the weekend. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb from 8 to 8, 12 hours. And don't get me wrong, of course I was checking my email, but it was a choice as opposed to it being something that was sort of propelled onto me. And I felt in over my head. It was all new to me. And I was so desperate to be that leader who had all the answers, right? And I felt my age at that time. And I felt almost, did I have imposter syndrome? I don't know about that totally, but I felt like I had to have it all and I was starting to crack. And I think as soon as I actually took that step back and acknowledged that there were going to be failures here and I don't have all the answers. And I remember we had a weekly sort of senior leadership meeting forum that was strategically put in place so that the senior people on the team that they did have a forum, a voice, exactly. And occasionally our CEO would come. It was a good opportunity to hear different ideas from different places. And I remember I opened up to them and I was really honest. I'm like, it was one of those conversations, I'm doing the best I can. And I think it was actually really disarming and it helped to bring us back to a place of, I almost want to say of more equal respect.
Yeah. It's like what we spoke about at the beginning around vulnerability.
Yeah.
I think there is so much power in vulnerability and you've got to balance it with presenting yourself as credible, right?
Absolutely.
But credibility also comes from being clear about the things that you don't know.
Yeah.
These are the things that I do know and I'm incredibly good at, and these are the things that I don't. And that builds credibility and builds trust. So that's kind of an interesting insight that you used vulnerability to navigate the failure, navigate the self-doubt.
And it was, in that moment of vulnerability, it was very powerful because it was a reset. And, it's this idea of sort of, what do they always say? Like, don't lock your legs when you need to stand for a long time, because that you could actually faint, or you have a greater likelihood of fainting then, as opposed to sort of keeping a small bend in your knees. And that's how I felt, right? You want to be pliable. You don't want to be rigid, because that's your risk of breaking. And I felt that personally. I felt like I was holding it all, trying to hold it all together. And that actually wasn't working. And it was in taking that breath and in sharing, I'm also a human. We all want the same things. We have the same goals. I'm not the enemy. We're in it together. That was a watershed moment, I would say.
And what was the response from people in that moment?
So much warmer than I thought it would have been. It's such a scary thing. It's scary to let your guard down. It's scary to show who you are inside. I mean, that sounds very trite. But it was so much warmer. I remember the response was, I think someone said, you're doing a great job. I think it was really appreciated. And I think it acted as a reset for all of us. Yeah. It created, I don't want to say an even playing field, but it definitely clarified that we were in this together. And it took some of the pretense out of it.
And how do you balance that with especially in your situation where you are leading people that are older than you, have more experience in the industry with you. How do you balance that, this need to kind of display expertise, strength with the vulnerability?
I think there's a couple, and this kind of goes back to maybe leadership 101, but you do need to balance it with all of the good things, right? Consistency in your decisions.
A big one. Yeah.
That's a huge one, right? You don't want to show necessarily flexibility all the time if it's not warranted, right? You have to make consistent decisions. You have to share the why and hold to it. So exceptions aren't always helpful to a business, right? You need to sort of have a reason for why yes to a certain thing always. You need to follow through on your word and do all of the other important things that show you are a stable and effective force while showing that vulnerability, because you don't want to come across and you don't want to actually be chaotic, right? Which I think is the risk you're running. Yeah. But I'm going to say this as if it's a strategy, and perhaps it is, but well deployed moments of vulnerability are extremely effective if you're also on the back end making all the smart management decisions you otherwise would. I think in a couple or in a partnership, they're very effective. But if you are a leader who's still figuring out what your answers will be to what will end up being consistent questions, maybe figure that out first and then find those moments of vulnerability,
Yeah, all those things you've just said to me are all the building blocks to build trust.
Yes.
For someone to build trust in you as a leader. Yeah. Be consistent, follow through on your word. Yeah. All those things build trust in you. And so then once you have the trust, it's much easier to be vulnerable.
Absolutely.
With people. Okay, we're going to go into a quick fire now.
Okay, I'm excited for this. I know nothing about it.
10 questions.
Okay.
They're fun, don't worry.
Okay.
No pressure. Number 1, what is your dream car?
Honestly, it changes.
Right now, at the moment.
Jaguar E-Type.
Talk to me about that. Assume I know nothing about cars.
Okay.
Describe it
So a Jaguar E-Type was referred to by Enzo Ferrari as the most beautiful car in the world. It is an old English car with a big, deep, long nose. You can get it in beautiful colors. Even just black on black is tremendous. It is just a sexy car. And this was part of the problem with automotive. Sorry, this is not quick fire, but I have to say this. Part of the problem with automotive today is the design is absolutely neutered by regulation.
Oh, interesting.
So if you look at a Land Rover LR4, it's called. You look at a 2009, it's boxy. And it's cool because of that. It actually has square angles. The newer ones are round. And they're round because of safety. It's very different getting, God forbid, hit with a rounded object versus a squared object, right? But there's a sin in that if we're talking from a design perspective, because there's just no ability for differentiation. But back in the days of the 50s, 60s, 70s, even into the 80s, you could design a really wild car, and the E-Type is stunning.
I guess that's why you're in business. Everyone wants to rebuy all the
Exactly.
the vintage luxury cars.
Yeah, absolutely.
If money was no object, what car would you buy for me and why?
Okay.
And why?
This is interesting.
Profile me.
Okay. And it's not just because you're an Aussie and the Outback and all of that, but I would, one of many cars for you, I would probably get you a 1970 Ford Bronco, soft top, in a fabulous color. I actually just saw one this morning that was a matte blue. I don't love matte cars because I think functionally they're a nightmare, but I could see you in a honking Bronco, big wheels, LS engine. You could take it on the beach. Beautiful, German basket weave interior. They're fun.
I love a bigger, four-wheel car. Yeah.
And I do. I see you in something that's physically taller. You can have fun in it, but it also can do highway driving. And it has pizzazz. And it's American. I don't know. I see you in a Bronco.
Okay, good. I have to get the visual of that after this. Worst career advice you've ever received?
Oh, what an interesting question. I don't know if I've ever really... Have I gotten bad career advice?
Or just even maybe something that you used to believe that you now think is bullshit in terms of leadership. or your career?
Okay. Like being a dog with a bone in an interview.
Talk to me about
right, that you have to please the interviewer. I'm a pleaser by nature. And I have often forgotten, and I think certainly early in my career, that it's a two-way street. You need to be evaluating this company for yourself. Yeah. And here, I remember so many experiences where I was like a dog with a bone, trying to... And I'm very good at it because I'm an actor. You listen and you amend yourself to the conversation, and you're like, this opportunity is terrible. The pay is garbage. The package is garbage. I don't even like the industry. How does it serve me in 5 years? In remembering that you can say no. You can say no to the opportunity. I think I've forgotten that a lot.
Yeah, I love that. One piece of art you wish you owned.
There are many. This is also part of the problem. I'm a serial collector, and in every category I've ever worked in, I make wish lists for myself.
What's on your current wish list? I
do regret not buying a work from a Swedish artist named Andreas Eriksson, who's a living artist, lives in Sweden. I had an opportunity to buy one at the Frieze Art Fair years ago, maybe 5-6 years ago, when they were affordable. And now they're not affordable.
God damn it.
So Andreas Eriksson... reach out to me. We should talk. His work is beautiful. He works, he's a painter, but he has a specific paint he uses, and it's an egg tempera. So there's actually, I think, egg white in it. And it creates this fabulous sort of matte effect. I've been obsessed with it for years. I still have my ArtNet artist alerts about it when they come up to the market. Amazing. But they're too expensive for me now. So I really regret not buying one early.
That's the worst. Yeah. And you do love a Swede.
I do. I literally love a Swede to my dear husband who is Swedish.
Yeah. What's the most overrated luxury car?
Okay. So Ferraris early on in their history, the 50s, California Spiders, into even the cars in the 80s, like a 328 GTS, which we sold a beautiful one of in August. Now there are too many makes and models
of the Ferrari.
And how do you really tell them apart? If you're a layman, you have the 812, you have the SF90. I'm sorry, but I do think they've oversaturated their market from a make and model perspective. And the reality is they've also built this whole sort of program. Porsche has done it too, where you might be offered a very limited make and model, and you might accept it because you want to be offered that next one. So they have these loyalty programs. It's like the Hermes factor. But the problem with those, Hermes appreciates, right? If I buy an Hermes at Madison Avenue today, I can flip it for 2x on the secondary market. For some of these makes and models of these modern vehicles, you're going to take $100,000 haircut immediately. So you're never going to get that money back. So I think that there's a risk in buying into some of those.
What's the first thing you notice when you walk into someone's house?
The walls and the art or the lack of art.
Oh.
You know how many people actually don't have art on the walls? It's very interesting.
Well, it's not accessible to everyone.
Very true. That's very true.
But I also think that I realized this working for ArtNet and kind of getting exposed to the art world, is that it always feels like something that's really inaccessible, but actually there's so many accessible ways in, and so many incredible, like, affordable art fairs and kind of younger and emerging
even your
artists
own
that
stuff.
are super affordable.
My husband has done some amateur photography, and we have his prints on the walls. For me, I always felt when I moved into a space, I wasn't moved in until there was, quote, art on the walls. Not all of it is collectible art.
Yeah, totally.
But it absolutely, it's what you want to reflect back to you, right?
Yeah.
So for me, that's like the final stamp of a space. So it is important.
Yeah, and it kind of says a lot about who the person is, just based on what their taste. And in another life, what job would you be doing?
I always wanted to be a psychiatrist.
Really?
Interestingly.
So many people, I feel like, in creative industries want to go into some sort of psychology or psychiatry. And I wonder if it's like, because so much of our business is also about understanding people.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely a part of it. I mean, there's no question. Part of why I'm attracted to auction is that I find the human desire and the human act of parting with sums of money to accumulate goods. I find that a wild psychological thing.
What does that say about society?
Exactly. And what does it say about the individual?
Yeah,
right?
what does it say?
So many things. I mean, in some cases, there's a really great article, or an essay by Michael Kimmelman called The Art of Collecting Light Bulbs. I had to read this in college. It was really impactful for me because this was about a person who collected light bulbs from the earliest aughts of them to modern ones. This was not a collection that was worth much commercially, right? It wasn't being built for the sake of sale eventually. It was being built for any number of like deep psychological reasons and also capturing
a moment in time.
A moment in time.
I have a version of this. Did you know this?
No, tell me.
So I collect newspapers.
Okay.
And I have since I was really young.
See, I love this.
And I have boxes of them in my parents' garage back in Oz. And even through my time in New York, I would be collecting them, and there would always be like this box of newspapers, and I would just take it around with me.
Wow.
And I've collected newspapers of historic events.
I was going to say, what is there an additional theme?
It's just been what I thought was important enough to collect, which has also been interesting because now these newspapers are a reflection of kind of what I thought was important at the time. And the earliest one I remember I have was when Princess Diana died.
Yeah.
When Princess Diana died, I was totally rocked by that. I would have been in primary school.
Right.
And it was a big thing in Australia. Yeah. Commonwealth.
Of course.
She was our queen.
But also that there was something in you that felt you needed to retain.
I was like, I need to remember. Like, I was so moved by that emotionally that I was like, I need to remember this somehow. And so that's the first one I remember I collected, and then I just never stopped. Everything from like 9/11 to, I've got a great one of like, the famous handshake between Obama and Trump, all these like political moments.
So now, do you go out, if something major happened today, would you say to yourself, I have to go buy the paper tomorrow?
I mean, I usually have the papers delivered. Like, I'm still someone who reads the papers, so I kind of have them. Right. But if I thought, I mean, I don't think about this every day. Right. But yeah, if something did happen, I probably would think about that, and I would go and try and find the paper.
For me,
and I don't know why I do it.
Exactly. Yeah. But for me, that you do is fascinating.
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know what I will do with them. Maybe at some point. I've thought about like creating some sort of wall with them, but then I don't know, I kind of like that they're in a box and no one looks at them in some weird way. Anyway, they're actually right now in my house in a stack in my living room, and I have like a record player over them, but it's just like stacks of newspapers. So cool. Some of them are getting yellow. It's amazing.
Exactly. They age over time.
Yeah. We'll see. Maybe they'll be worth something at some point.
You never know.
You never know. My last question. Obviously, you've got a really beautiful little girl, Vivian, and a little boy on the way. What do you want your kids to know about leadership as they grow up?
It's so funny. My daughter now, when I come down, around 5, 6 o'clock, she goes, "How was your work?" So she already has some concept of, we go to work.
Mm-hmm. That's cute.
I want them to know it's not easy. It's not pretty. We aspire to these jobs for any number of reasons, right? Whether it used to be the coveting of the corner office or of the partner title or whatever, whatever came with the job. These are hard positions and they do require work. I think there's a fallacy in leadership that you're always at like that 30,000 foot helicopter and you come down when you need to, right? And in some organizations, it may well be like that. But that in fact, it is the ones who have been on the field and in the trenches that ultimately make the best leaders because you know the struggles and the challenges within all facets of the organization, that it is hard work. And, you shouldn't be afraid of, back to the toolkit, you shouldn't be afraid of experience because you never know when you might need to call on that experience as a leader. So, although I said, don't be afraid to say no, I maintain that, but also embrace the yes when it makes sense for you, because as a leader, having a deep arsenal of experience, I think, makes you a more capable leader. So for my children, it's very much like get out there and get your hands dirty.
Life.
Absolutely.
For sure. Yeah, it ties back to your almost opening story around wanting to play all the different roles in the theater, roll up your sleeves, do all the hard work. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was so fun.
I agree. It's funny, in hearing about this, like, didn't know what it would be like, but ultimately I think a conversation on failure was pretty uplifting.
There you go.
You know,
It's your way of like pulling out
the headline.
pulling out the
Exactly.
repackaging.
Oh my God, am I pathological or what?
Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
Really appreciate it.
If you liked this episode, please hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. While you're at it, please drop a comment and let me know what resonated with you. I'd love to hear your take. And as always, I'd be so unbelievably grateful if you could share your favorite episode with a friend. It really is the only way an independent podcast like this can be discovered.